86% of big companies hedge against currency swings, but none of them are actually using XRP to do it, at least not yet. So I asked an AI, what would happen if they actually did? And the numbers that it came back with had me double checking the screen. Today, I'm going to take you on a bit of a wild thought experiment that starts in the corporate boardrooms and could end with a very different XRP price than we're used to. Now, I'm going to be talking about giant companies possibly using XRP to solve a really boring but rather important problem: hedging foreign exchange risk. It sounds really dry, I know, but stick with me here because this rabbit hole, it led me to ask a cutting-edge AI about XRP, and its answer was something out of a sci-fi novel. Right, we're going to get the answer, we'll get to the answer anyway, and trust me here, right, it might actually make you rethink your own XRP goals. Along the way, I'll also share a cool new crypto project that I've been testing out as well, and here's a hint, it involves about turning your phones into crypto little learners, and a special limited time deal as well to score some free XRP. So yeah, there's a lot kind of packed in here, so let's jump on in. So picture this then, right? You're a corporate treasurer at a big international company. Your job is to make sure that when currencies move, like the dollar and the euro doing their own little dance, that your company doesn't lose a whole ton of money in the process. Now, it turns out that 86% of European firms and 82% of North American firms already hedged their foreign exchange, that FX exposure. Now, they basically buy financial products to protect themselves. On average, about 48% of their risk is actually hedged globally. Why? It's because if you don't hedge, you're playing with fire. In fact, companies that skipped hedging got burned by about 75% of cases last year alone, meaning that they took losses due to the currency swings. So, how do they hedge? Well, mostly it's with old school tools. Around 60 to 70% of hedging programs, they use forward contracts. Those deals where you lock in a future exchange rate. Now, when you've got options, haven't you, right? You could swap, which could make up, 15 to 20% and 10 to 15% of the mix. And then there's even something called natural hedging, right? This is a fancy term for just balancing where you earn and spend so currency changes cancel out each other, which kind of covers another 20 to 40% of the exposures. Now, even with all of these strategies, it's not a walk in the park for these companies. Now, a lot of them actually complain that hedging is expensive. It requires complex analytics and doesn't even cover some of the crazier emerging market currencies. Right? There's a reason that some treasurers hesitate or do the bare minimum here. Right? And here is the kicker. Globally, there's about $33 trillion worth of US dollar assets that could be hedged out there, and a huge chunk that isn't even hedged at all. So it's kind of like a massive iceberg of risk just floating around then. And experts, they think that all the company and corporate money flying around the world is only going to grow from here. So, what do the forward-thinking treasury folks do when traditional tools just aren't cutting it? Well, some of them are actually exploring something radically new, using crypto, and specifically XRP to handle part of that FX exposure. Now, I know it sounds like mixing oil and water, right? The buttoned-up corporate finance world and a volatile cryptocurrency. But hear me out. You see, in theory, if a company wanted to try this out, it could maybe keep about 5 to 10% of its spare cash in XRP and use RippleNet or the XRP ledger to zip money across the borders. So, why XRP? Because those transactions, they settle in like 3 to 5 seconds and cost just a fraction of a cent, right? So the translation here is this: it's super fast and it's super cheap. Right, there's no waiting days for a wire transfer to clear, there's no hefty bank fees. So if a firm in Europe is getting paid by a client in the US, well, they could just convert that payment into XRP and send it over instantly, and swap it into euros on the other side. Now, the currency risk exposure would actually shrink from days or weeks to maybe just a few seconds. See, it's pretty cool, right? It's almost like sci-fi for corporate finance world. And there is always a but, right? This idea is still very experimental, right? One big issue is that XRP's price can swing 50 to 100% in a year, whereas major currencies usually only move around 5 to 15%. So, if you're cautious treasurer, well, your last thing you want to do is actually hedge swinging wildly in value on its own, right? No one wants to do that. So in other words, at least for now, XRP might be better as a quick payments tool or bridge asset rather than something that you park your company's savings in as a bit of a hedge. All right, so maybe companies aren't diving headfirst into this yet. I mean, can you really imagine the headlines if Apple announced that it's hedging with crypto, right? But even the fact that this conversation is happening is pretty huge, and it did get me thinking, what if, let's say, a few brave companies actually went for it and started using XRP for some of their hedging? How would that ripple out into the market? Well, pun totally intended there, by the way. Now, let's start thinking about the big players experimenting with crypto, and it kind of got me reflecting on how innovation is everywhere in this space. Here's a case in point, right? Something that I've been personally testing is called Unity nodes. Now, it's not our main focus or topic for today, but it is a cool, not to mention kind of it's too cool, I should say, to not mention at least briefly in this video. Especially and essentially since Unity lets you turn regular smartphones into part of a global network that verifies the telecoms grid, and yes, the phone network, and rewards you for crypto for doing it. Now, every time that my phone makes a verification call through the Unity app, I'm actually helping to detect issues on the network, and that work gets recorded on-chain and paid in crypto. So just imagine, right, instead of mining with power-hungry rigs, you're essentially just mining by making phone calls, and you get paid in multiple different cryptocurrencies of your choice, things like Bitcoin, Ether, ADA, XRP, you name it. So when I discovered this, I had to give it a try, right? Now, I bought a Unity Node NFT, which came with 200 licenses, basically meaning that I could run the system with up to 200 different phones. Now, I'm not setting up 200 phones right off of the bat, right? I'm not starting a smartphone farm in my living room. That's not the idea of Unity. It has to be spread far and wide. So my plan here is to actually start with around 10 phones when the Unity app goes live, which should hopefully be pretty soon, just to see how it all performs. Now, if it's working well, then I might just gradually up slowly, right? And gradually over time. The cool part is that I get to choose what cryptocurrencies that I earn as my rewards. Now, I'm personally going to be picking a bit of a mix between Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, and of course XRP for those payouts. It's kind of like staking or mining, but through a completely different mechanism. And of course, I'm keeping my expectations realistic. This is an experiment for me. I did my own research, and you should probably do your own research if you are curious, right? I'm going to put some links in the description down below to the Unity light paper and the rewards calculator in the description so that you can check it all out for yourselves. By the way, I've talked about Unity in many previous videos at this point, so some of you guys probably already know the gist. And for anyone who is interested in trying Unity without jumping in fully, well, I've actually got a second and third Unity node that I'm planning to lease the licenses out for. Essentially, if you want to run just a couple of phones and see how it goes, well, you can do that without buying a whole node for yourself right away. I'm going to share more details about that on our free educational Discord server. The link for the Discord is in the description below. And it's kind of all about making these new opportunities accessible to the community. All right, let's get back to the main story here, because XRP and our corporate hedging thought experiment, right? Because, it's time to talk about the AI prediction that I teased earlier. So here's what I did. I basically asked Google's new AI chatbot called Gemini to imagine a scenario. I said, let's say out of roughly $200 billion in FX hedging transactions each year, some chunk of that is shifted towards XRP. What would happen? Gemini, the AI, basically ran with that idea, and it came back with some eye-popping numbers. Now, according to this analysis, right, in that scenario, XRP's market capitalization, it could jump from around about the $153 billion currently to around $1.5 trillion. And yes, that was trillion with a T. Now, that would mean roughly an XRP price of $25, given the amount of XRP that is out there in circulation. Yeah, I had to read that twice. $25 for one XRP. And that's not even the craziest part here. The AI, it went on to add that if this really started a domino effect, like institutions FOMOing in, then regular investors piling on in, and maybe even those long-awaited spot XRP ETFs getting approved, well, we could see even more explosive growth. Now, it's in what it called an extreme case, of course. The XRP could trade somewhere between $90 and $120. Yeah, that would be put the total value of XRP in the multiple trillions of dollars, right? $5 to $7 trillion in market cap. I know, it sounds insane. But let me be very clear, this is not a price prediction that I'm making, it's a hypothetical scenario from one AI model. And before anyone starts thinking that they're going to retire early on this news, let me just ground ourselves for a second here. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so we had to get that out of the way. So yeah, while $120 XRP makes for a great headline and fantastic daydreams, we're nowhere near that scenario yet. So it assumes a perfect storm of adoption, doesn't it, right? Corporates using XRP en masse, institutional money flowing on in, and supply squeezing quite heavily. ETFs, the whole kitchen sink, if you will. The reality check, big companies, they move slowly. They're not going to just pile on in. They're conservative, and they'll have to kind of get more, at least a lot more comfortable with crypto volatility before doing something like this. However, even a hint that one Fortune 500 company was experimenting with XRP for payments or hedging, it could send shockwaves through the crypto markets. Now, it would be a validation of crypto's utility that goes beyond the usual number go up speculation. In a way, this whole discussion is showing how the line between traditional finance and crypto is indeed blurring. Who would have thought that even a year or two ago that we would actually be talking about corporate treasurers considering a crypto asset for managing currency risk? From my perspective, it's a hopeful sign. It means crypto and XRP is at least in this case, is being seen as more than just a speculative token, right? It's potential, or at least potentially a tool, a real solution. And as an XRP holder, that makes me rather optimistic. Now, if nothing else, the scenario that we walked through highlights just how underpriced something could be if a new utility suddenly boosts its demand. Now, let's shift gears from the big players to us individual investors for a moment, because whether or not XRP hits $25 or $100, the key is being prepared for whatever the crypto market throws at us. Now, one lesson that I've learned over the years is to have your bases covered here. And by that I mean have multiple exchange accounts set up and ready to go. Seriously, right? When things get crazy in crypto, and they always do in bull runs, exchanges, they can crash, they can freeze withdrawals, or just get overwhelmed with new traffic. Now, the last place that you want to be is stuck waiting for an exchange to approve your account when you need to make a move. So, I always keep a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C when it comes to trading platforms. I've signed up on all major ones I trust, and even some of the smaller ones too, with KYC done and small test trades completed. For example, I use platforms like BitGet and 𝗗𝗀𝘀, among many others. Here's a shameless plug, of course. If you do want to check out all of the exchanges that I use, then you can check out the link to my website that's in the description below. And on there, they are all affiliate links, which means if you do sign up using my links on my website, that actually supports the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. Now, the point is not to spread yourself too thin, but to ensure that you have options open. So if exchange A is down or has a ridiculous withdrawal delay, that you can hop over to exchange B and just keep on going. Speaking of exchanges and being prepared, I'm excited about a new partnership that I've got with Kraken that can actually benefit you directly. Now, Kraken is one of the big, reputable exchanges that is out there, one of the biggest, and they've actually been rolling out a promotion to sweeten the deal for new users. So if you sign up with Kraken through my link that's down in the description below, and you trade at least $100 worth of any cryptocurrency, excluding stablecoins, within 30 days, well, Kraken's going to give you $25 worth of XRP as a bonus. That's free XRP for basically doing what you're probably going to do anyway, so it's not a bad deal. And yes, I'm going to be transparent about this. This promo is through my affiliate link, so it actually helps support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself too. This is a limited time offer, by the way, so if you are interested, now's a great time to take advantage of it. Plus, even beyond the free crypto, it is another major exchange account set up for you guys, which is tying back into my strategy of being ready for anything. So all the details and the terms and conditions for this promo are in the description down below, linked directly on Kraken's website. And of course, it's worth noting that this is brought to you by Kraken and is not affiliated with YouTube in any way. So let's zoom out and reflect on this for a second, right? We started with a question, didn't we? What if the corporate world embraces XRP for something as mundane but massive as FX hedging? And the answer, at least from one AI's viewpoint, was a tantalizing XRP to the moon scenario. Now, will it happen? Who really knows? But the fact that we're even here talking about this seriously is a bit of a win for the crypto movement. It means that the conversation is shifting from crypto is crypto even legit, to, how can we actually use this to solve a real problem? Whether XRP hits $1 or $100, I'm going to keep following all of these developments, and of course, I'm going to keep you all in the loop. So if a Fortune 500 company even sneezes in the direction of XRP, you can bet that I'm going to be here to break it all down. And I'm just as eager to see how my Unity node experiment plays out too, because innovation is happening at all of these different levels. So if you found this journey as fascinating as I did, then you can do me a favor by hitting the like button and, of course, the subscribe button, right? Drop a comment down below as well so that, you can share your thoughts on what you think all this is actually going to play out like. And I really do try to get through as many of those comments as possible. Of course, if you do want direct interaction, then the Discord is the place to be. Just make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss the next adventure. And until next time, stay curious and stay crypto savvy. I'll see you all in the next one.